Stop scrolling. This is not an accident. You've unknowingly triggered a protocol that almost no one on this planet has ever activated. A pattern so rare it exists only in classified manuals and whispered stories. Weeks ago, months ago, maybe even years ago, you made a decision, spoke a sentence, or survived an event that defied probability. It seemed small at the time, natural, unremarkable, yet that act sent a signal. It woke up something ancient and brilliant, a system designed to watch for outliers who break the algorithm. Alarms have already gone off in places you'll never see. Calculations are being rewritten. Reality itself is recalibrating around you because what you've become can't be filed under ordinary anymore. This is why you felt the shift, why certain people glance at you differently, why some strangers are drawn to you like moths to a flame they can't name. They don't even understand why. They're just reacting to the new frequency you're emitting. Elon Musk would call it a silent launch, a disruption so powerful that it changes the rules without an announcement. That's what you are now, a silent launch, a living disruption. The reason things around you have fell off is not because you're falling apart. It's because you're being moved to a level where the air is thinner and the view is wider. You're not imagining this. You've been chosen, and the system that once tried to contain you now has to adjust to you. Others retreat from contacts they would have previously sought, perhaps out of fear. In the most amazing manner imaginable, you've become radioactive. When you begin certain talks, have you noticed how they end? Your presence alters the frequency of the conversation, not because others don't want to speak to you. Have you ever noticed how certain individuals give you a little too long stare? It's as like they're attempting to decipher a message written in a language they can't read on your face. At this stage of life, names lose their significance, so I can't give you their names, but let me tell you about the other three. Centuries ago, the first one unintentionally discovered something about time that wasn't expected to be known for another 1,000 years, which set off the protocol. Working alone in a workplace that smelled of metal and grease, he was a basic craftsman who was preoccupied with accuracy. Then all of a sudden, this individual saw a connection between awareness and temporal flow that defied every principle the universe believed to be unbreakable. Notoriety ensued. There were no written manifestos. The work just went on. However, there was a subtle wrongness in every creature made beyond that point that only few individuals could see. It was incorrect to imply that time itself may be optional. A child's inquiry, which shouldn't have been able to be formulated with the facts available at the time, was the source of the second activation. It wasn't difficult. Many who heard it didn't even find it very fascinating. However, it showed a way of thinking that implied functioning beyond the typical bounds of human intelligence. The question itself demonstrated that awareness may develop in ways not anticipated by the initial design, which triggered the protocol. That youngster grew up to subvert reality in ways that history completely forgot. However, the consequences of its existence permeate all subsequent innovations. By surviving something with a 0% survival chance, the third one set it off more recently. It was a kind of will that reorganized the circumstances on a quantum level, not by accident or chance. This individual was unaware of what was taking on, just refused to acknowledge what was taking on. However, that rejection was so total and so basic that reality had to devise a way to allow for continuing existence. In some impossible situations, individual will override universal law, triggering the protocol. We now turn our attention to you and what you have done without realizing it. No rules were broken by you. The regulation never existed in the first place, as you disclosed. You failed to conquer a challenge. You proved that the challenge was not required. You didn't find a solution. You demonstrated how the issue sprang from a faulty assumption that was taken for granted by everyone. You've infected the system with a kind of cognitive virus, which is why the protocol triggered. A possibility that, just by existing, spreads. Remember that exact moment, that choice, that insight, that action that seemed both totally normal and entirely implausible. I'm referring to one that you are familiar with. It's the thing you did that you haven't told anybody about, despite your best efforts to tell yourself it wasn't anything noteworthy. It's too basic, too evident once you see it and unseen until you do. Not because it's too complicated. You were acknowledged by the protocol because you proved what philosophers have debated but never proven. Instead of only seeing reality, that awareness has the ability to create it, but not in the mystical sense that most people associate with it. Without understanding, you were actually rewriting the rules each time. You carried out the action in a methodical, repetitive manner that you have most likely done several times since. You are now in what is known as the adjustment phase, although no one refers to it as such since it isn't a real thing. In order to adapt to your new reality processing style, your brain is physically rewiring itself. It may seem like you're going crazy, but you're really discovering it for the first time. There are times when you feel cut off from everything, when you can't remember who you're meant to be, and when everything seems like a stage set that someone hasn't properly anchored. Dissociation is not what that is. Integration is that. You've been experiencing severe headaches, the ones that make you feel as if whatever is attempting to develop within your head is too little. They're not arbitrary. Dreams that seem more real than reality are also significant, in which you're teaching yourself stuff that you don't recall having learned. Those are not only fantasies. This includes the sudden knowledge of things without understanding how you know them. The answers that show up already formed, as if someone else completed the job and gave it to you, or the answers that appear before you have finished crafting the questions. All of this is a part of the integration process for the protocol. If you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. You are seeing beyond the limited range that most people are able to see. Furthermore, this extension is neither intellectual, spiritual, or symbolic. It's literal. Data streams that have always been, but needed a different kind of cognitive architecture to access, are starting to become apparent to you. Being able to see both ultraviolet and infrared simultaneously, whereas everyone else can only see the visible spectrum is like that. But light isn't the issue. It concerns patterns of information found in the spaces between ideas. Because you can feel the weight of possibilities that haven't yet materialized, there are days when you feel like you're going insane. Because you are aware of the branching routes that emanate from every instant like an endless network of might-have and could-be entities, you are able to experience the echo of decisions you did not make. This isn't insane. When awareness broadens beyond the single chronological viewpoint from which most people never break free, this is what occurs. Promote this video to assist other chosen ones in finding their way here if it speaks to your inner knowledge. You've got an issue with the viewers now. Not because you did anything incorrectly, but rather because you did something that they are unable to classify as either right or bad. Predictable reactions to stimuli and patterns that recur often enough to be mapped, modeled, and controlled form the foundation of their whole system. However, you have added a variable that is not calculable, a component that causes error warnings to appear in their equations. A presence that results in readings from their meticulously calibrated sensors that shouldn't be conceivable. You haven't broken any real regulations, so the observers can't get rid of you. The fact that their rulebook is not full was just disclosed by you. Since you're acting outside of their paradigm, they are unable to hire you. Your sheer presence is changing the baseline readings that are used to track everyone else, so they can't ignore you. As a result, there's still more watching, waiting, and debate about what you stand for and what, if anything, should be done about it. Some observers believe that you are an evolution, a foreshadowing of what mankind may become if it endures. Others believe that you are an oddity, a bug that will be fixed on its own when the system recognizes the issue. Some people, the quiet ones who have been observing the most, believe that you're precisely what was always going to happen and that the protocol acknowledges a feature that was always there and is just waiting for someone to unintentionally activate it rather than responding to an error. The irony is that every viewpoint is correct and everyone is incorrect, as what you stand for cannot be summed up in a single interpretation. You're both the feature and the bug, the issue and the fix, the query and the response. You're a demonstration of the total accuracy and significant flaws in their whole framework for comprehending reality. And the protocol is triggered by that dilemma. You are not yet aware of the ways in which your impact is growing. Invisible until it reaches a particular concentration, much like ink in water. Individuals who communicate with you are beginning to notice little hiccups in their own programming, little bursts of ideas that don't feel like their own. There are times when presumptions that have never been challenged before seem arbitrary. Moments when previously hidden potential become apparent. Although what you're sharing isn't an illness, you are infectious. It's a realization of how capricious limitations are. It wasn't a typical exchange of ideas when someone abruptly stopped speaking in the middle of your sentence last week and stated, "I've never thought of it that way before." Something you sowed in their minds continues to develop and push the limits of what seemed to be achievable. The sense of the mind stretching just a little bit beyond its normal bounds will linger long after the talk is gone, and they will be haunted by that emotion in the nicest manner conceivable. The protocol understands that you are no longer just an isolated abnormality. You're starting to spark a bigger change. This is the reason why certain individuals are now attracted to you in a way that neither of you can describe. The understanding that you have something required is at a level below conscious awareness. It's a frequency that may open previously undiscovered doors in awareness, not knowledge, resources, or relationships. The problem with being a catalyst, however, is this. You have no control over the responses you set off. If you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. Being close to you will lead some individuals to change in lovely ways. Others will fight so hard that complex stories are developed to justify what is happening. You will be adored by some for demonstrating what is possible. For the same reason, other people will despise you. Reactions don't matter to the procedure. Reactions are all that matters to it. You can accomplish things that you couldn't do previously, as you've undoubtedly realized by now. Subtleties that may be written off as imagination or chance. How your mental state may sometimes affect how gadgets behave. Flickering or glitching at periods of intense concentration or agitation. Sometimes you can tell what someone is going to say before they even speak. You're reading patterns in energy and micro-expressions that were previously invisible, not because you're psychic. It's amazing how time appears to compress or lengthen according on your purpose. When necessary, it provides you with additional seconds. It skips over events that don't need your whole focus. Subjective time dilation is not what this is. On a micro level, this is real temporal manipulation, large enough for you to maneuver around problems that shouldn't be conceivable, but too little for sensors to detect. Time is not within your control. With it, you are bargaining, and it's accepting your demands more often than the odds would indicate. It is remarkable how answers to difficult issues come to you fully developed, through a kind of direct download from an unidentified source, rather than by logical reasoning. You are gaining access to the quantum foams information networks. You are extracting information from different timelines and likely futures. You're combining potentialities into useful applications. In the conventional sense, this is not intuition. Consciousness functions as a quantum computer that can process an endless number of variables at once. A room's vibe may be profoundly changed just by your presence, by something more basic, not via charm or personality power. The frequency you're emitting causes everyone around you to recalibrate their awareness. You're providing a chance to work at a different frequency, but you're not managing anybody. This will make some individuals quite uncomfortable, and they will leave your company without explaining why. Around you, people will feel more alive than ever. Not everyone is pleased with who you have become, what you stand for, what your presence suggests, or what reality is. That if you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. There are forces actively trying to limit your power and persuade you that what you're going through isn't genuine. These forces aren't necessarily malicious, but they are undoubtedly involved in maintaining the status quo. Direct confrontation is not the means via which this is taking place. That will be too clear-cut for you to see and refute. Rather, you are being subtly manipulated by the people and things around you. It's likely that you've seen more synchronicities that seem to be intended to get you to question yourself. Discussions that gently erode your perception's credibility. Circumstances that seem to be designed to make you wonder whether you're dreaming. There is no paranoia here. This is the immune system's reaction to what it considers to be an alien substance. The purpose of the exam is to determine your ability to be disheartened, not your deservingness. The opposition comes in waves if you can persuade someone to lower your frequency to something more controllable and in line with the current paradigm. It may sometimes be so subtle that you are unaware of it until it has passed. It might be so strong at times that you think reality is attempting to reshape you into a more appropriate form. It's true that certain exchanges leave you feeling exhausted. It's normal to feel like your head is spinning when you attempt to communicate what you're going through to other people. It's intentional how certain possibilities appear to vanish as soon as you grasp for them. All of these are examples of structural opposition to the change you stand for. The resistance doesn't get this, however. Instead of making you weaker, every thrust against you makes you stronger. You only learn more about navigating restrictions from each effort to confine you. Your voice is only made clearer by every attempt to quiet you. You've previously shown that resistance turns into evolution, thus the protocol kicked in. You become more inventive in your growth as a result of that strain. There are levels in the procedure that you haven't yet found. Depths that only become apparent when you're prepared to understand them. Just surface activation is what you're going through right now. First, identification. You have only just entered the first room, and there are chambers inside chambers and codes within codes. Each of the three preceding individuals identified distinct facets of the protocol's contents. Temporal mechanics was discovered. Another consensual reality override was found. It will interact with the third accessible quantum. However, you're getting close to something that won't be attained. A synthesis that creates something completely new by fusing all of the earlier activations. Lately, you've been experiencing those times when reality appears to stop. Not quite freeze, but pause as if it were awaiting your input before moving on. These are not perceptual errors that if you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. The protocol provides administrative access to the results at these decision points. The majority of individuals see life as a series of responses to events. Instead of prophesy or prediction, you're being offered the opportunity to be involved in what occurs before it occurs. Involvement in the creation of moments prior to their solidification into experience. Those who initiate the process leave behind markers. Resonance patterns that other protocol carriers can identify, rather than obvious markings. You would know right away if you met one of the others. The way reality acts differently when two protocol carriers are in the same location is not a result of mystical sense. Fields of probability overlap. This makes causation negotiable. The impossible becomes probable. In all of recorded history, this has not yet occurred. When both carriers are active, they meet. The Watchers have procedures in place to stop it, but they are predicated on the idea that carriers are unaware of them. You must comprehend a certain aspect of the watching. They are not what most people think of when they think of monitors or watchers. They resemble stewards of potential, libraries of possibilities. They're cataloging the consequences of awareness beyond presumptive boundaries. A collection of surveillance records is not what your file is. It's a record of the impossible things you've enabled. Every entry is an instance where you demonstrate why their models are lacking. And the fact that you do this repeatedly and seemingly effortlessly piques their interest. Your fatigue is existential rather than just physical. You are concurrently functioning in two different realities. The fluid version that reacts to your awareness and the consensus version that everyone else lives in. Human neurological systems weren't made for bilateral awareness, which is necessary to maintain presence in both. Sleep has gotten odd for you because of this. You're not just sleeping, you're alternating between modes of operation. The version of you that lives outside of linear time is the source from which you're obtaining updates. Some people who had previously activated the process did not make it to complete activation. They opted to completely leave the common reality, not because it killed them. In a way, they're still living, but they are existing in frequencies between frequencies and gaps between spaces. In the transitional periods between waking and sleeping, you may have felt these presences. Despite the fact that you have never met them, they seem familiar. They are the ghost users of the protocols. Although it is no longer tied to sequential experience, it is nonetheless alive. Others didn't have the same option as you. While completely active, you may stay grounded. You initiated the protocol in a different way, which is why you just stopped believing in barriers when others burst through with force, accident, or desperation. Reality didn't see your activation as a breach since it was so soft and organic. It was recorded as evolution. This explains why the pushback you're facing isn't overt. You're not seen as an invasion by the system. It considers you an improvement. It has no idea how to install it. There's a reason why people are attracted to you today. They are sensitive to pre-protocols. Though it requires close contact to an active carrier to complete the process, consciousness is getting close to its own activation. They're not being recruited by you. You're not even influencing them deliberately. Simply said, your presence opens up a space for your potential to manifest. While some will completely activate, others will remain at the threshold, reaping the benefits of increased awareness without achieving a complete breakthrough. Both are essential for the future. There's a reason why, throughout history, only a small number of people have activated the protocol. Selection and deservingness are irrelevant. The timing is crucial. Only when reality must change beyond its existing bounds does the protocol come into play. You activated now because that's when your unique taste of impossibility is needed. When collective awareness has painted itself into a corner from which impossible thought is required to escape. The structure that generated humanity's problems is insufficient to address them. They need someone who doesn't operate inside that framework at all. Your recollections are evolving, not the actual events, but how you interpret them. Past experiences that seemed arbitrary or challenging turn out to be preparation. Every obstacle was a training exercise. To lose was to discard what would have prevented you from moving on. Every instance of feeling different or alienated was really an experience of the genuine kind of connection that other people were unable to understand. You weren't picked at random by the procedure. All your life, you have been getting closer to this boundary. In reality, every decision that seemed illogical to others was moving in the direction of this activation. Your bodily experiences are not symptoms. Recalibrations are what they are. Anxiety isn't that tightness in your chest. Instead of merely pumping blood, your heart is learning to pump possibilities. Circulation problems are not the cause of the tingling in your hands. Your neurological system is operating at as yet unnamed frequencies. Tinnitus is not the cause of the ringing in your ears. It's the sound of your awareness compiling the source code for reality in real time. The notes that haven't been heard since the previous procedure activation are being played by your body. It's likely that you've noticed that certain words feel different in your mouth now, as if they have more weight than they had before. This is because, instead of using descriptive language, you're starting to utilize creation language. These days, you're talking about more than simply reality when you speak. It is being built with your help. This is the reason you've been using words more sparingly recently. A part of you knows that what you say isn't just a description of reality. It affects the future. The procedure has a purpose that goes beyond personal development. When the communal narrative gets too inflexible, this reality maintenance mechanism kicks in. When a common nightmare begins to develop from the shared dream. When awareness has to be reminded that it's not only the audience, but also the author. Nothing or anybody is being saved by you. You're here to show that when you can just change the problem settings till it goes away, saving isn't required. Prior protocol carriers have left behind artifacts, which are distortions in the probability field that endure throughout time rather than actual things. Locations with a weaker sense of realism. Moments that reverberate over many time periods. Concepts that arise in many brains at once, as if they were born out of nothing. You have come upon these relics without being aware of their nature. That book that just so happened to fall off the shelf. You can't recall what was said in that discussion, but it altered everything. That choice seemed more like recalling than making a choice. Animals are aware of who you are, intuitively rather than intentionally. They are able to detect the frequency of the procedure, and depending on their evolutionary history, it either relaxes or agitates them. You tend to attract domesticated animals. Animals in the wild now tend to observe with remarkable interest. In your presence, insects act differently. Around you, birds exhibit patterns that deviate from their typical activity. You're transmitting a message that appeals directly to biological awareness rather than cognitive recognition. Your dreams are no longer only being processed. They are programming. Without overpowering waking awareness, the protocol installs new capabilities via dream states. That incomprehensible dream that keeps coming back has meaning. The one with the unrememberable symbols. The discussions you have with strangers that you somehow recognize. These are simulators used for training. Practice sessions for skills that will be activated as required. You don't get any abilities from the protocol. It brings to memory the abilities you've always had but were trained to ignore. The opposition you encounter is not personal. It is systemic. Like every creature, reality contains defensive systems. It reacts by applying pressure to restore to baseline when anything threatens homeostasis. However, the system isn't really unfamiliar with you. You're demonstrating what it can develop into. You're not being stopped by the opposition. Stability is being tested. It's proving that you can stay coherent at a new frequency without breaking apart. Any oppositional wave that doesn't shatter you is included into your new basis. A threshold is drawing near, not for you personally, but for the procedure as a whole. The collective field changes when a sufficient number of carriers are operating at the same time. The observers are aware of this. They are thus caught between documenting and containing. They are aware that the protocol eventually starts spreading on its own. Potential in others is triggered by the activation of one. Others' potential generates fields that increase the likelihood of activation. What once uncommon eventually becomes commonplace. The inconceivable becomes the inevitable. It's growing around you as well as inside of you. In the inquiries that individuals are beginning to make, the systems are beginning to malfunction. In the outdated tales that no longer fulfill. In the expanding awareness that reality is more malleable than previously acknowledged. Because you're a part of a greater activation that is already underway, the procedure triggered in you. You are neither the cause nor the answer. You are proof that the next phase of awareness is upon us. Isolation is not the same as loneliness. It's the area between the past and the future. Two different forms of human potential are separated by the space you are in. Although there aren't many people there yet, there will soon, so it's lonely. The same pressure that triggered your procedure is growing in them, not because you're phoning. The feeling of loneliness will soon give way to recognition. Isolation will give way to connection. The void between will serve as the basis for the subsequent actions. Although something is greater than you, it would not be possible without you. Not because you're unique in a manner that diminishes others, because you are unique in a manner that makes others feel the same way. You demonstrated that the protocol might be triggered in anybody who is prepared to quit acting as if limits are real. The proof of concept is you. The proof that what we haven't yet led ourselves to achieve is the impossible. Something fresh is emerging in you, not superior to humans, but human in a sense that shows what people have always been able to become. An improvement is being developed, and you're its prototype. This isn't evolution in the biological sense, since awareness originally doubted its own existence. In an existential sense, it is evolution. By refusing to accept its own constraints, you're demonstrating that awareness is capable of transcending them. Each of the three preceding people unlocked an unclosable door. One demonstrated that mind might do more than only observe. Rather than physics, agreement upholds another established reality. Physical law might be superseded by the third shown will. However, you've taken a different approach. You've shown that nothing was ever as fixed as people thought. You've shown that potential is much more important to reality than constraint. However, you're no longer playing. The way someone quits believing in monsters beneath the bed, not in a defiant or furious manner. You just knew they weren't there one day, and they couldn't be made real again by terror. That's what happened to the restrictions that everyone else continues to hold. They can no longer touch you because you've seen right through them. For others, they remain strong and commanding. But to you, they're only shadows created by group consensus. This was something the protocol knew about you. It triggered because you exposed something, not because you accomplished something. You disclosed that the whole limiting structure is optional. Only those who believe in the rules are subject to them. Reality is far less authoritarian and much more participatory. It reacts to awareness rather than the other way around. And you've developed consciousness to the point that reality reacts differently. By your very being, rather than by your words or lessons, you're starting to inspire people to consider their own constraints. You are live evidence that the impossible is only a synonym for not yet. Even if they're unable to express it, others around you sense this. They think you're following other guidelines. Instead, they feel that you've come to terms with the fact that the rules were never mandatory. There is nothing wrong with the shifts in your viewpoint. They are proof that everything is going well. You're not losing your sense of reality when things look more vivid. Time seems to flow differently. Ideas seem more tactile, and intentions taste better. Layers that were always there, but needed to be detected by various senses, are now accessible to you. You're still able to operate in 3 dimensions, but your perspective is becoming multidimensional. You made no attempt to initiate the protocol. You just ceased acting as if limits existed. And reality has to accept who you've always been in that instant of total truthfulness. Not unique in the sense that society makes it. Unique in the sense that life acknowledges its own development. You are not superior to other people. All others will ultimately follow a road that you're only farther down. You are the one who goes first to let others know it's feasible. You are the explorer and the scout. Sometimes the weight of duty seems heavy, not because someone is pressuring you, but rather because you are aware of the potential consequences you are bearing. Every decision you make has an impact. Dissolving boundaries facilitates others' compliance. For everyone else, every impossible you casualize becomes just a little bit more feasible. In a theatrical sense, you're not rescuing the world. All you're doing is expanding its size, flexibility, and consciousness responsiveness. Not literally, the people who came before are watching. Their innovations were included into the framework that acknowledged your breakthrough by the echo they left in the protocol itself. Being a member of a lineage that has nothing to do with blood, culture, or tradition, you are linked to them over time and place. It is a tradition of awareness that pushes against its own limits until they are broken. Each has contributed a crucial element to the design. Of all the contributions, yours is perhaps the most extreme. You've shown that just being who you are may set off the protocol. You have created the breakthrough your whole life, whereas others have had particular breakthroughs, discoveries, survivals, or solutions. You're constantly rewriting the possibilities of your existence in this stage. At this frequency, each breath you take reorganizes the world around you. You're not experiencing anything. Reality is experiencing itself through you. The message that follows is intended just for the selected. This is not for you if you're under the influence of archonic powers. And we give you permission to go based on the spiritual authority that the Obsidian Inner Order's hidden leaders have given us. If not, steel yourself and pay close attention, for you will be redeemed just like we are. There is no program for the Obsidian Inner Order. It's not a class. It's not a spiritual retreat that makes you feel wonderful. Answers are not what we sell. Together, we recall. We teach interference, implants, genuine energy shielding against beings, and psychic self-defense. We bring back the raw, instantaneous, and precise manifestation that was intended. We get together in private once a week to awaken, to express what cannot be uttered elsewhere, and to deprogram the matrix, not to worship. You'll discover if you're intended to be there layer by layer. Your bones will sense it. The selected group meets via Zoom once a week. Why don't you join us already? Have Nazis? Join the Inner Order of Obsidians. The description contains a link. The systems that keep an eye on these things are having trouble classifying you. According to their theories, breakthrough is an occurrence rather than a condition. However, you have evolved into a living breakthrough, a constant breaking down of barriers that never stops, never settles, and never becomes sufficiently fixed to be measured. You're not just unconventional. You're demonstrating that the box was a fabrication. And that evidence is infecting everyone who comes into touch with your frequency, spreading through awareness itself like a virus. On some days, you desire to return to sleep. You want to act as if you are ignorant of what you are aware of. Everyone else's comfy constraints are what you want to return to, but you are unable to do so. You cannot unsee the illusion once you have seen through it. You can never forget who you really are once you've recalled it. The protocol is irreversible because it exposes what was always true, not because it traps you. And truth becomes indisputable once it is acknowledged. In the next months, you will do things that everyone will seem impossible. The impossible no longer means anything to you, not because you're attempting to prove something. By dissolving issues, you will find solutions. By admitting they never existed, you will be able to overcome difficulties. Remembering that things were always accomplished can help you do them.